Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Audio Cycling Velogames podcast, where today we are going to be taking a look firstly at the Etoile de Besseges and then the Volta Comunitat Valenciana. It's one of the few times of the year where we've got overlapping competitions going on, so we're all frazzled to the brain trying to figure out who we're picking onto each of our teams. I guess I might start by, well, we could talk a little bit about the stages just real quick. Etoile de Besseges, I'll just put these up, the images post-production rather than screen sharing. But Etoile de Besseges, we're quite used to these sorts of profiles. The first stage is that one which basically Mats Pedersen is very synonymous with winning. It's that kind of short little berg at the end. It's definitely one for the punchers. And then we have a stage which was also, I want to say it was a couple of years ago, maybe won by Pedersen as well, which goes to Rousson, which is 0.9k at 9.2%. And then from Besseges to Besseges, looks like it's kind of lumpy, but it'll probably still be a sprint. I think Delhi won a stage similar to this last year. Stage 4 is the hilltop finish, but it's 4.4k's at 4.6%, so it's not too hard. And then we've got the classic TT from Alès to Alès after to finish up, which again, Pedersen very known for winning. We'll get onto him in a little bit in his pricings. But what do you guys think? Is the lack of like a really tough mountain top finish influencing your teams right now?
Yeah, I mean, my team is absolutely built for the hilly stages and maybe some kind of sprint, some group sprints. But absolutely, I think the lack of a mountaintop finish or a hillier stage is definitely influencing my team. I don't have one single rider that you could call a climber or something like that here.
I think even though you got the time trial to finish, I think Pedersen and the puncher guys are going to build up enough buffer. That hilly stage, I think there's 4 or 5 categorized climbs. They're not like they're sprinters climb stages. So yeah, there's not even that many climbers in the start list, to be honest. I mean, you've got a few time trialists who can climb, but there's not Leknesund on Uno X perhaps, but there's not many climbers in the race.
I think the 2 riders that I'll be missing in this competition will be Brian Coco and Delhi, because I think they are the 2 sprinters who could actually challenge Mats Pedersen. But from what I've seen on the start list, I really like the Uno X team because they have riders that could literally win every stages. And the one that I really like it, and like Dan said, Andres Leknesund. I think it should be all about him in the stage 4. But the question is, can Mats hold on to his lead, or is he just interested with the stages and maybe the final ITT? And my team is built around Leknesund and the other sprinters, and I think we'll have similar teams as well.
Yeah, cool. Right, well, I'm going to share and get Velogames up on screen just without further ado. So, speaking of Pedersen, I guess we may as well talk about him. I mean, we were just talking about the stages. I really think that Pedersen, although it probably won't happen, but I think that he could win like every stage in some way. He honestly is not. It's not out of the question that he could do well in every single one of these stages. So for me, I mentioned this in my first preview. Do you guys agree that you need Pedersen in your team?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, there's no doubt at all. Like he's by far the strongest rider. I mean, I think it's stage 2, which is stage 2. You've got this kilometer at 9% finish, which I think that's way more Leknesund's or Bettiol, someone who's like Cosnefroy, someone who's much lighter. But even for the time trial, it's only 10 kilometers, so he could easily win. Well, I'd say he could top 3, top 5 every single stage.
Yeah. I think for that he's basically just like he has to go into people's teams. I was actually quite surprised when I loaded up this competition for the first time. I thought he was going to be 24, 26 credits, something like that. I think 20 is when you consider that Vocola.
I was going to say, are you surprised by how expensive Vocola is?
Not really. I think I'm more surprised. George might be watching us. Who knows? But I would have probably put Pedersen more expensive. I think Vocola is fairly correct because he does have all the qualities of somebody who could be finishing on the podium, especially considering that he did good in the GP Marseillaise the other day. So
I'd say it's been made easier by the fact Pedersen is the price he is. Like I have a team I'm very happy with. There's a couple of people I can't get in, like Bergadeau, as you can see there. There's a few of the 14 credit riders I might want, but you're not letting go of Pedersen. So
yeah, there's lots of 14 credit riders. So does anybody have Vocola?
Nope.
No.
Oh, you do.
You do.
Considering, yes.
What about moving down? Healy and an APP. For me, I'm not too keen on these two either. I can understand people's want for Healy, but I feel like that might be a bit of a bias towards how good he was last year. And Aurélien Palipentel, I just don't think has the terrain isn't really suited towards him. I think there's cheaper riders who are better. I think that Kuznetsov is probably the better choice for Decathlon and also as a Velogames pick. Healy, I said it in my preview, Healy just isn't actually that great of a time trialist. He's fine, like he's good, but he's not. He's
not set the world on fire.
Yeah, but am I just delusional in that, or?
Well, no, I think that it's Etoile de Besseges is known as being a punchy course, and these two are the kind that you'd expect to see in either in a sort of low price, in a climbers category, in a Grand Tour. Like they'd be at 10 to 12 in the Giro, for example. I'm not paying the price they are for a short stage race that has uphill sprints in it.
Yeah. So what do you think, Pedro?
I think that neither of them is worth it, honestly. If I had to choose between them, I think I would go with Healy. But, he's not that strong in the ITT. I agree with you. And I don't see him competing for many stages here. I think there's a lot of stronger guys for this kind of race. And also, I'm a bit skeptical too, because he hasn't shown anything this year, and we don't really know. It's a bit of a gamble. He's not the most suited rider, and adding to that, he's a bit of a gamble, like some of them, of course, but I just don't see it.
The only scenario I see them being worth it or scoring the points necessary is if on that lumpy stage where it's really chaotic and they get up the road in a breakaway or something, and because they've both got teammates who are expected to be up there in Kuznetsov and Bettiol, that they're kind of let go as secondary leaders or something.
Yeah, I think something similar happened a couple of years ago. I think it was the year which Benjamin Thomas won.
Yeah.
Him and Bettiol got up the road. I think it was somebody else, I want to say. Can't remember. But yes, some kind of scenario like that. Speaking of Bettiol, he's 16 credits. He's in my team. I think that Bettiol, after the Mallorca Challenge races, I think he's looking he's looking good. He's not exactly like world beating Bettiol that we've seen in the past, but I think that he's good enough to be on my team. The terrain suits him. He's done good time trials of this length in the past.
Well, he's won this race before, hasn't he? Or at least he's won the time trial.
Yeah. I think. Do you think that Bettiol is the best option for EF in this race? He could be. Yeah. Simon Carr's also looking good, but
they have a lot of options.
Yeah. They do.
They've got. If they didn't have Bettiol, I really like Quinn, the American, because he's a great puncher, but just don't know whether he's going to get leadership. Unhelpfully as well in the start list, they're in alphabetical order rather than having a leader, so
Yes,
you
that
don't
is
know who
quite
they're
right.
preferring.
Yes, I have so many
So
good riders.
Carr and Healy can be attacky.
Mm.
Nura Carr, the young Brit, new on EF. So I mean, Bettiol should be the leader.
Yeah.
I just don't think. I think that it's a very Giro looking squad. So the rest are all sort of climbers, whereas he's actually got that sort of classicsy punch that Pedersen has.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Petro,
Oh, sorry. No, you go.
go Petro. You go Petro.
I mean, I think Bettiol is gonna be their main man, and I'm betting on it honestly because he's on my team too. But I think he has the right type of characteristics, and I think the race really suits him as long as he's in good shape. I think he's probably the most suited rider in EF. But of course, Carr and Gilly, they are great riders too, and who knows? But right now, for me, it's Bettiol.
So say that again, Irfan. But like, have your microphone a little bit closer. It was just a little bit hard to pick you up.
Yeah. I think Bettiol will be the leader for EF, but the fact that there's Nenrur Kar, who did really well last week, and he's just at 6 credit. So I'd rather leave out Bettiol and try my luck with Nenrur Kar at 6 credit, and maybe try to have a different team.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, Nurka's looking good. I'll tell you what, who is, because there's a lot of 14 credit riders, and we're not just going to single-handedly go through every single one. Who is your favorite 14 credit rider? I'll go first, and I'll say that my favorite one is, I think my favorite is Kuznefroy. Even though his time trialing isn't particularly great, I think that he could do well on the other 4 stages. What do you think, Dan? Who's your favorite 14 credit?
My favorite one, I'm not actually picking, which is quite a weird one to explain. I know, because my heart is with Magnus Cort. I just love him so much, so I'm picking Magnus Cort. However, it doesn't make much sense now I'm explaining it, but I really like Mathieu Bergadeau because I think he, outside of Pedersen, depending on his shape, and maybe depending on Bettiol, I think he can top 3, top 5, pretty much all the stages except the time trial. Because I don't think Kuznefroy has got the punch necessarily for the flat finish. But Bergadeau is always, I mean, he's like the little mini Alaphilippe. You know, he's like goatee and everything. He'll, I think he's, I can't remember if it was a year or 2 ago when DeLee won uphill. I'm fairly sure he was in the top places for that. So he's very good at punching. I just think, just to talk briefly about Leknesund, I'm just not sure, other than GC at the end, I'm not sure he's got the punch, but, you know, might be wrong on that.
Yeah. Irfan's just dropped out, but we'll just keep going. Anyway. Whatever it helps. Pedro, who's your favourite 14 credit rider?
For me, it's between Kuznefroy and Magnus Cort. I think Cort, if he's in the right shape, he might be the correct choice. But not knowing his form, I think I'll just go with both.
Okay. Yeah. So, I think my next one, I think my next conundrum is the Alpecin boys of Axel Laurence and Timo Kielik. This is honestly, this is one of the 2 people in my team which I am like, I've got 2 positions up for grabs, and it's between like Kuznefroy and Bergadeau, and it's between Laurence and Kielik. I do not know who to go with. Laurence, under 23 world champ, how can we all forget that? Kielik was really good at Tour of Wallonie last year, I want to say. And I think that Kielik is the better sprinter on the flats, but Laurence is the better guy uphill. But Laurence blows so hot and cold in races Britannia Classic, he's done really well. Under 23 world champs, but outside of that, I'm struggling to have confidence in Laurence. What do you guys think? Keelik or Laurence?
Well, I'm struggling so much. I've just got both of them.
Could just go with both.
It was, I mean, honestly, because of how the way, going up and down with the prices, it's either a 14 and an 8 or 2 12s. And I just thought, you know what, I could have Court. No, I've already got Court. I can have Bergadeau and Guernalec, or I can have Keelik and Laurence. And I thought, they're the kind of team, Alpecin, where they'll go with 2. So they might switch around the lead out, but I can see both of them being the top 10 on all stages by the TT. And I just think I can't be bothered picking one of them and then it's the other one. So I just thought I'm just going to pick both because it's a short enough race where I can pick both and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe Laurence is the strongest, I guess, and probably he'll be the best choice if you want to target a stage win or a good stage result. But maybe Kilish, if you want to be more consistent, I believe is the right option. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna include any of them just because I don't feel comfortable and not knowing who the leader is or who the main guy is. So I'm staying away from them.
Yeah, that's fair. I quite like Benjamin Thomas for this race. As somebody who's previously won the race, is he going to be winning any of the stages? Probably not, but he was good in one of the Mallorca Challenge races. I think it was the one which Pelayo Sanchez won. Thomas was top 10 there, I want to say. So he's obviously climbing quite well. So I quite like him. But we'll move on to the... Is there anybody else in this 12 or maybe even like 10 credit range that you guys are wanting to give a shout out to?
Not particularly, because they're either domestiques or they're like a tier in terms of sprinters, like someone like Dujardin. They're kind of like a rung. Dujardin is a sort of Laurence type in that he's a punchy sprinter who can climb. But because Bergadeau's on that team, I just don't see him. I don't see any of those being worth it, really. Besseges could be like top 3 in the TT if he can climb.
Yeah.
Who knows?
He can't. He struggles with climbs, doesn't he? I was going to say Dujardin's quite a good one. He was really good at the one-day races towards the latter half of last year. But I can understand Bergadeau's probably the man there.
I hear you say, but Brent Van Moor was climbing well. He was 12th in Marseillaise, so
yeah, and that was quite a good performance for a guy who's quite a rouleur type. But is he outside of he finishes 8th in the TT, he finishes 9th overall in GC. Is that worth it for a 12 credit rider?
Not. I've just seen that Milan Menton's in that team as well, so he's going to be their sort of fast man. So that's not going to be worth it.
But going on to the 8 credit riders, I alluded to it. I think the best one after his win the other day has to be Kevin Geniets, right? Do you guys think Geniets is the best 8 credit rider?
Yeah, without a doubt. You can't go wrong. I think you got to pick him.
Yeah.
Definitely should be in it.
And he's a time trial specialist as well. So he's
for
someone that's so big, he actually climbs really well.
Yeah. Just that performance the other day was really impressive to me. And I think that he can just time trial well. He's obviously the leader, I think, for Group Armour. When you look at the rest of their team, I'd say he's.
Well,
really
I like Pacher as well, because he's
true.
like that. He's that classic. He's basically the archetypal French puncher at least of the lower divisions, because he was on lower division teams the last few years. So I think he will be better suited to those 2 sharp uphill finishes. But I think Geniets is more their GC guy. I did look at the history of Sirot just to check, because he has won 2 stages of this race before, but I checked and they were both flat sprints. So I'm not going to pick. I thought, is Sirot a puncher all of a sudden? No, he's still a sprinter.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I agree that Geniets is it's for sure the best option, and I agree with Dan too about Pasher. I had him in my first team, my first draft, and but then I checked his results and his last year results, and he didn't have that great of an year, and I think I'm staying away because of that. But either of them, there's some good quality there, but Genius is for sure the man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's Sean Quinn here as well, who of course Dan alluded to earlier. EF's just a tricky one because it's so hard to tell who they're going to go with. They've got so much talent; it's hard to believe that any one of them are going to be a domestique in this race. But there's also Alex Sagarte, who is, fantastic under 23 rider in the time trial. Do you think that he could do something in this race, or is he a bit like Brent Van Moor, but just 4 credits cheaper?
It's an exciting pick, but again, it's 8 is kind of that annoying price where it's almost too expensive to have a punt. But it depends how your team's set up, because I've got a few 6s in there to allow Pedersen and the rest. So I mean, he's an exciting pick. I just don't. It's a small race that he can demonstrate what he's made of potentially, because Lotto Destiny it's a bit of, there's got a few more unknown riders on their team this year. But just seeing there, looking at the 8s, Caminos from Alpecin, so he might be their fast man finish actually.
Yeah, it's always hard with Lotto Destiny. Sometimes they just swap up sprinters and just go with somebody different each day. I mean, speaking of 6s, we'll move on to them. Of course, there are so many to go through, but I'll quickly go through and call some names out, and then once we get to the end, we'll kind of go back and you can all talk about your favorite ones respectively. Alex Baudin, of course, was second behind Geniets the other day. Somebody in my comments put Jeno Berkmos, who was again in the top 10 the other day, so he's quite a good one to be going with as well. You could. I'm a big fan of like Lucas Nerurka and Darren Rafferty. I just don't know whether they'll get the opportunities in this race, considering the quality of EF. But Nerurka did finish 6th place in one of the Mallorca Challenge races, and he's quite a good puncher. So maybe he's got a little bit more credibility about him. And you could maybe say Luca Vergalito, because he did quite well in Tour Down Under. But those names, do you like any of those names, or are there any other ones which are jumping out at you?
Well, there's the guy who you pointed out, who I'd not even noticed before, despite the fact he'd done stuff last year. That Po Mikel from Kern Farmer. So he looks like an interesting one, just as a Spanish puncher, because they're always exciting. One to avoid, though, I think, is Marco Brenner. Not because I think he'll do badly, because he could do really well in the TT and finish high on GC, but we haven't seen enough from him at DSM to. He's not a puncher, basically. He's like a mountain. He's a tiny guy. He's like 56 kilos or something. Who was the other one? The Cluckers guy from Tudor.
Yes.
Time trial specialist, I think. He was a bit of a sprinter as well. I swear he was in Decline's lead-out train last year a lot. Yeah. He's a stronger guy. And just the last one from me, the Wiederberg at Uno X, because he was at DSM.
Yeah.
So he's a bit of a breakaway. I swear he won the KOM jersey somewhere last year. I just can't remember.
Yeah, I think you are right. He did somewhere. I know what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do like those ones. I do agree. Brenner's a bit of a red flag, to be honest. He's promised so much for so long, but hasn't quite ever delivered it. Pedro, who's your favorite 6 credit riders?
It's not easy, but I believe I have to say Bodan. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but it wasn't an easy pick. But I don't really see. I might be wrong, and I probably am. But I don't see much value in the 6 credit riders apart from Boda and Mikel, like you said. The rest of them is just a bit of a gamble, I guess, and I'll probably end up with Boda, or maybe try to find some assist points from some of the guys. I don't know, but I guess it's Boda for me too. Brenner, I thought about him, but I think Dan is absolutely right about him, and I don't want to take that risk. Although he might do something interesting, but I think it's a probably one stage gamble for him. So I'm staying away. But for me,
Yeah. Irfan, who's your favorite 6 credit rider?
I've actually got 4 of them in common with you. I have got Alex Boda because of his second place, and Nenroko, like I said earlier, because I'm living out Etoile, so he was considered against assist. And like Dan said, I will also so Michael Poe for his he had 2 top 10 results in one day races, the Rocket and Marseille, and the another race. And I also I feel bad that I missed out on Magalito in the two down under. And when I read more about him, he's also like J-Vine as Shift Academy in I think 2022, and that's 6 credit. And he did well in Australia, so we'll see where he goes.
Yeah.
So
I just want to say something about one of the Cofidis riders. I was checking his last year's results, and Gujard is a good rider, but I don't know if he's the right one for this race. But I just want to point out that he had some good results in these French races last year, and is a strong this year. He might be an interesting one. I just don't know if it's for this race or not, but he had some good results, so I think we should keep an eye on him. He might do something interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll scroll down to the 4 credit riders. However, I would strongly recommend to anybody making a team to try your best to get 6 credit riders into your team instead of the 4 credit riders, because there is nothing here.
Other than Holgard, but yeah.
That's true. Other than Holgard, who was good in Marseillaise, he was in that front group. Yves, I mean, Leclerc he came top 10 in some sprints in the Tour a couple of years ago. But I think that the 4 credit riders are not the place to be going. I think that you're better off saving just 2 credits somewhere and maybe just putting that to try and get a 6 credit riders, because I think there's enough 6 credit riders who could get you 150 to maybe 200 credits if you're lucky. Whereas I think that the 4 credit riders are they don't have the potential for me. But do you guys see any 4 credit riders, or are they just don't go there?
I think it depends if the parcours was different. Like Thomas Boudard, who was on Direct Energy several years ago. So he's a good punchy rider, but not for these stages. Like he's a flat sprinter. I just think we're lucky that George has priced it so that you can get pretty much everyone and you want and not have a 4 credit rider. Because I think otherwise you'd just be punting on people like Grelier or someone random and French that you'd want to get someone to get in the breakaway. So, I mean, I have Holgard at the moment, but that's just because I've got both the Alpecin boys.
Okay, that's fair. Any other 4 credit riders?
I have nothing. Honestly, there's nothing for me. And unfortunately, I have 2 4 credit riders in my team. So there's some changing coming. So I don't think there's anything. So I'll do some changes, and I'll manage to escape the 4 credit riders. But there's nothing.
There's not even any assist points in there because there's no teammates from the big teams.
Yeah.
I mean, you could actually. That's not true. You see, Eddie Le Huituz. So, I mean, I looked him up. He's a time trial specialist. So, you know, he should get freedom for that last stage to just hammer it and have a go.
Yeah.
So you get Geniets and potentially share assist points, and then maybe like a 15th on GT or something.
Yeah, that's true. If there was a track rider, it might be worth it for Pedersen, but it's probably not.
I think it's whole guard or no one. It's either whole guard or 6 credits. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll reveal my team, which I think is very similar to what I had the other day. So, this is what I have at the moment. Very puncher orientated, like Pedro was saying at the top of the episode. You know, just keeping it very puncher. Very few, if any, pure climbers in here. I think the 6 credit riders, after what we were saying, might be up for a little bit of swapping around, and certainly somebody like Kuznefroy or Kielik could certainly be swapped out. But I'm quite happy with the rest of the team. Do we want to just? I mean, we could either, I don't know, you could either send a screenshot, or we could just talk, or we could just say what riders you've got. What do you want to do?
I mean, yeah, we could read it out. We can. I mean, I think it's going to be a lot easier with Besseges sending it over because it's not going to change. I don't think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've got Pedersen, Bettiol, Laurence, Kuznefroy, Geniets, Kielik, Pasher, Holgard, Bodan. So, and that hasn't changed since I picked it the first time.
Nice.
I'm just banking on Kielik or Laurence doing better than Thomas. So, basically.
Yeah. Pedro, who's on your team?
Right now, I have Pedersen, Bettiol, Kuznefroy, Kort, Mozato. Not sure why. Geniets, Bodan, and 2 4-credit riders. So I'm dropping Mozato, and I think I'll manage to escape the 4-credit riders. But yeah, right now that's what I got.
So those are our teams right now. So we will. We're going to go and record our Valenciana video right now. So be sure to go and check that out and put any of your teams in the comments section down below.